Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We will start in a minute because we still see that different people are joining. On the right side of your screen, you will see a chat, and you can use that chat to answer any questions you may have during this webinar, or ask any questions, let's say. We will try to answer them. And there are also a couple of polls there that you can answer maybe. And you will also see some handouts from, let's say, interesting information that we can be read in addition to this webinar about smart glasses today. So I see already some answers coming in. We have now 28 people joined.
It's the Netherlands and the US so far.
Yeah. So we wait for 1 or 2 minutes and then we will kick it off. So this whole webinar will be recorded, and that will mean that you will also receive the full copy of this webinar in your inbox once it's finished. Yes, you see, you can also find the chat. Yeah, so it's a good question, Enrico. Your mic and cam will not work indeed. So you can only hear and see us. So you can use the chat if you have any questions, of course. Okay, we see around 60% of the people that subscribed has joined. So 1 more minute and then we will we'll kick it off. See some of us joining from the UAE. That's great. Also greetings from Oman, from Bonaire. Yeah. And I assume, Patrick, you are joining from Cure Oil. Kenneth maybe as well. Yes, very nice.
Worldwide audience today.
Yeah. Okay, let's kick it off for today. Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar about hands-free inspections with smart glasses. My name is Jelle Zwanenberg and I'm your moderator of today. Yeah, so to introduce you to the topic, a lot of companies are of course finding new ways to run their inspections and maybe even started digitizing already a part of this journey. But we also see that enterprise wearables and other kinds of technologies are more and more available to enterprise companies to further improve the life of the connected worker. So Aidin and me, Aidin is today's speaker, we are both from Smartflow, and we have a connected worker platform, and we are very much oriented on the connected worker and to help him to do smart data capture, to make sure that the connected worker is integrated into the full application landscape within a company, and that all the data that the connected worker provides will lead to actionable insights. Today's speaker is Aidin. Aidin Yavari is a business consultant at Smartflow. I have been working almost 2 years now with Aidin, and Aidin is servicing our key customers in digitizing their frontline operations, and he has a very special interest in smart glasses. and other enterprise wearables. But today we will share his knowledge about inspections, hands-free inspections with smart glasses. So please, Aidin, take it away if you are ready.
Thanks, Jelle, for the nice introduction and your nice words. I hope everyone can hear me well. I'd like to kick off with let's say, a brief history to understand the journey of the smart glasses better as we know it. So I pinpointed some of the highlights of its history. It all started basically in 1968 with a prototype called Sword of Damocles. It was basically a very large head-mounted display that was attached to a large computer, and the mechanical arms that were attached to the head was actually part of the ceiling because of its weight. You cannot see this in the picture, but it was a huge machine. This was basically the first experiments with head-mounted displays and laid, let's say, the ground for future development. Then up to 2000, there was the micro-optical Task 9, which is also, let's say, prototype-ish smart glasses, very lightweight, had a lot of patents and breakthroughs that were later acquired by Google and used in its smart glasses, which I will get back later on. Now, another interesting one I found was in 2005, the Vuzix V920, which were basically, as you can also see maybe in the picture, video glasses where you were only able to watch all kinds of videos, so you cannot actually see them through. However, in 2013 is perhaps the most recent one, and perhaps also the consumers, maybe everybody is aware of, and the concept is the closest to what we see in smart glasses today. With Google glasses, it was a total package, so you could see them through. You had the screen, it had a camera, it had a microphone, and they did a run to enter the consumer market, but failed because of various reasons, which we will not get into today. But fortunately for us, all of those products have developed further, and a lot of companies nowadays offer ready-to-use smart glasses with AR capabilities, all kinds of cameras, GPS, internet connectivity, etc. for enterprises. The vast majority of, let's say, the things we dreamt of earlier with all the head-mounted displays are actually possible today. However, before going forward on the topic of specific smart glasses, I would like to talk with you about, let's say, the current situation with inspections, at least from our point of view, what we see at Smartflow. In the so-called inspection world, we see different things. First of all, we see still a lot of companies in certain industries still using the traditional based inspection methods. So I'm here talking about, let's say, pen and paper. Which means on a daily basis, someone has to actually print all of those inspection forms. They will actually fill the inspection forms. The field workers will fill in the inspection forms outside with all kinds of external conditions, like weather and all kinds of input errors because of bad handwriting. Most of the times it comes back. Somebody has to verify them maybe. At the end, also file them. In the filing process, they have to scan it and to actually file it somewhere on a folder on the computer, or actually in a, let's say, very old school cabinet somewhere in the office. Another situation which we see often is that some companies are, let's say, forced to take some steps with digitization, but they use a lot of so-called, what we like to call shadow IT. And with shadow IT here, I mean, maybe it's familiar for some of the attendees today, that for each process or each part of the process, there is somewhere a Word document lying around that someone has to fill in and to generate a PDF, or somewhere it's like an Excel sheet going on, which is manually being kept by all kinds of users. Everybody has access to it. Maybe even some people have access to it that shouldn't have access to it. Another situation which we also see is running several apps or programs in parallel. So they're not interconnected with each other, which leads to situations where data a lot of times has to be manually copied by someone from one system to another. A little bit more rare we see is the digital tools, but not mobile. So they make use of tools such as asset management systems or ERP systems, but they don't have let's say, a proper mobile application for themselves to actually use it in the field and to meet their needs. And the last category we see, which is I think the most rare one, is companies that are actually mobile, fully mobile, but they don't have the right tools for the right moment. They are, for example, which is also the topic of today, not being able to do hands-free inspections in certain situations, or to check something which is difficult to reach, like under a bridge or something else, for example, maybe with a drone.
Okay, so Aidin, you're basically sharing with us that, of course, the Smartflow, let's say, is a solution that will even make, let's say, our way of inspecting more innovative and maybe effective in certain situations. But there are also, it's good to notice, let's say, that there are issues or challenges with the current way of inspecting. So let's say the things you're highlighting here. And if we look at the poll that was answered, then we see that the majority, we have 12 answers so far on the question, what traditional inspection challenges do you struggle with? We see that the majority answers with inspection, tracking, and compliance, and second, it's outdated technology. So maybe you can also, briefly give your thoughts on those.
So outdated technology is, I think, a proper one, which maybe is also, let's say, a combination of the second category, the shadow IT one. So running apps in several parallel to each other, so you don't have the latest systems that even communicate with each other, or the Excel files. But also, let's say, the tools. Maybe if there are some digital tools already there, like a tablet or a mobile phone, that they cannot have the how do you say that, they don't have the right tools for every right moment. So perhaps they have to do some kind of things in the field, indeed, which the tools that they have right now are not covering them. And I think the point inspection, tracking, compliance is also a very relevant one. That's again something we see a lot with shadow IT. You basically, it's very difficult to see who has changed, let's say, a cell in an Excel file, or there's no validation, or there's no tracking in that. Something with we also see often. Yeah.
Assume that I'm indeed experiencing inspection, tracking, and compliance issues. What would you be your first, let's say, where should I start?
I think the correct business solution for what you actually trying to want to do. So let's say if we are in a situation where let's say the field workers have to do inspections for, let's say, a tank terminal or something like that. You want to have a business solution that every field worker can log in on a certain account that is his own, with his own name on it. Then with that name will then be linked to a certain inspection. And then with that, we can always ensure that the right person is doing the right inspection, but we can also track what that person exactly did, on what day, what time, and what changes he made, or what kind of assets he, for example, inspected.
Okay, so yeah, then we move on. So you're basically saying that let's think of the perspective of the person that's actually executing the job, and really think of what he or she needs to perform it according to all the compliancy and other regulations. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Great. So with this, a vast majority of these companies are, let's say, facing changing dynamics and various challenges and obstacles. I want to highlight some of them today for you. First of all, of course, with this certain processes they already follow, there are limits to optimize these processes and run actually efficient operations as you maybe want to, because of the current inspection methods a company is already using. With that, facing issues with regulatory compliance, especially applicable for companies that still do a lot of pen and paper, or use a lot of shadow IDs with different Excel files. With this, of course, which is an obvious one, are the input errors, which I also highlighted before, because with a lot of inspection methods, there's simply too much room for error. There's no validation, no verification methods are built in, so the system is, let's say, not monkey proof. There's too much room for error. Also, another one, which maybe was also a little bit answered in the poll, are the challenges to adapt to new technologies, especially for field workers and of course also with that companies that have been doing their jobs for a very long time in a certain way. And also a very relevant one now for today is COVID-19, which, let's say, makes things a little bit more difficult to do as we used to, for example, to travel freely in a country or internationally. So some companies are already making use of the, let's say, the first wave of mobile digitization with tablets or with other mobiles, which is obviously, let's say, a major improvement compared to the traditional methods. However, there are also a lot of situations where the tablet is experienced as a burden by the actual user. For example, in situations where the user has to perform certain actions with his hands, he has to hold that sometimes pretty heavy tablet, especially if it's an explosion-proof ATEX tablet, for example. He has to hold it at all times in his hands. So we believe that a lot of these challenges can be tackled with smart glasses, or at least with the addition of smart glasses in daily operations. Some of the benefits I would like to highlight include, I think the obvious one, which maybe everybody already heard about, is remote assistance, where you basically, from a distance, anywhere in the world, you can, through a live stream, see what the actual inspector is doing and help with that. So especially very relevant today in COVID times, it's not necessary to fly someone over to another part of the world to help somewhere. They can simply do it behind a computer. Next, hands-free inspection, which is also the topic of today. So actually the ability to perform inspections and follow checklists totally without using your hands, all with voice commands. Stuff like taking photos, making videos, answering all kinds of questions, filling in values are also all possible with voice commands with the smart glasses. But also the ability, for example, to have a blueprint of an equipment or an asset, something like that, open at all time and see it actually in your line of sight when you're doing certain actions. The next one, which is also interesting, is our knowledge transfer and training. If you have, like, let's say, a combination between senior and junior workers, it's again not necessary anymore that the senior workers always on site. You can maybe let less experienced workers do certain stuff, and the senior worker can step in that process when necessary. And the same could be said about training purposes, of course, which I will also get back to later in my presentation. And of course, which is maybe an often overlooked part, is you have actually the opportunity to redesign your work process, because as I also said before, a smart glass can also be seen as an addition to your work process, not necessarily as I believe substitute is the right word to a tablet, to shape certain parts of your process to be specifically used by the smart glasses. And yeah, finally, of course, greater operational efficiency because of everything you just mentioned. I think, Jelly, you have a question?
Yeah, because there's an interesting discussion going on, let's say, in the chat. The first point of discussion is actually that smart glasses are very expensive, they say. And it's really difficult to find good ATEX smart glasses also with the certification. So maybe from all your research, Aidin, and all the different vendors you spoke to, you can already give some vision on how that market is evolving. And secondly, let's say with data connectivity, and I think you also have a good answer, let's say, on that part, since the smart glass is its own device, right? So in terms of inspections, yeah.
Yeah, so the first one, there are exactly vendors that already offer, let's say, explosion-proof, ATEX certified smart glasses. What I see personally is you have, let's say, you have different categories indeed. So you have a lot of smart glasses there that are, some smart glasses that are under the 1,000 euros range, something like that. And I see that let's say, category is also growing. What you see is that the smart glasses that are, let's say, a device on their own, so they're most often not necessarily an extra to a tablet, but it's basically a tablet on its own because it's also running on Android, are a little bit more expensive. In those kind of situations, of course, the smart glasses can basically take over the whole inspection process if necessary, because it is running on Android, it is an Android-based device. you can basically do everything with it that you can also do with a, let's say, with a tablet. So the vendors that offer actually ATEX devices are, let's say, relatively a bit low, but I see let's say the offerings are definitely growing. And I think what was the second question, Jelle, about data?
Yeah, so let's say we have the connection question, so data connection, because let's say for remote assistance, we know that there needs to be, let's say, a live connection between, let's say, the smart glass and the people, let's say, that give remote assistance at that moment on the desk.
Yeah.
So what about data connection? And the second question, because I will ask one more then. So the different mounting possibilities, let's say. So in the picture we see here that the person cannot wear hearing protection. So, but I believe also there the smart glass vendors have different ideas or possibilities.
Yeah. So to answer your first question, yeah, we see also with different Smartflow vendors, different solutions. A lot of them have, let's say, their own application where you can remotely download it on your desktop or laptop and connect with the smart glasses that your users are using. But we also see an increased amount of vendors that are, let's say, integrating with the tools that we all know. So, for example, I recently saw a smart glass vendor that was able to join a call in Microsoft Teams and to actually, so you can actually have a Microsoft Teams call, and one of the respondents are, let's say, is using his smart glasses. To answer your second question, yeah, so we have some smart glasses are, let's say, also built-in safety glasses. They can even have a, let's say, a prescription. Some of them are, as you can see in the picture, they have, let's say, the safety glasses is something you have to buy yourself, and the smart glasses that you see in the picture is like something that's in the bottom right of your corner. If you also have, so with the version that there are glasses on its own, you can easily wear ear protection, or if necessary, earbuds which go under the ear.
But with the smart glass, let's say with the first question, they're also being used to store data locally, right? So that you can also work offline even with smart glasses, although that will not be remote assistance, but let's say for the inspection process.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So okay, so no, I thought your question was specific on remote assistance, but no, if we go further than remote assistance, of course, on these devices, the data can just be stored locally on the smart glasses themselves. And you can even indeed work offline in situations where there's no internet connectivity. And when you're online again, everything will sync, of course, depending on the business solution that you or the software business solution you are running on the smart glasses.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Please continue.
Okay. To get back to the story, as I said earlier, a lot of manufacturers have these ready-to-use smart glasses with all the great features and capabilities, which I also highlighted now based on the questions. However, if you start using smart glasses with inspections, it will most likely be a solution on its own that is not interconnected with the rest of the organization or even with the rest of the tools of the worker. So with this, I mean, so for example, not connected, as you can see on this picture here, with other applications, let's say like a time management tool or something for work permits, for example. It's not connected with the back office of your company to receive certain data that is needed for your inspection, or to send even data back when the inspection is completed. You want to have that interconnectivity. And it will also be difficult to connect with perhaps some sort of smart sensors that are available in the field. So the simple ones like NFC chips to recognize a certain asset or load asset information, or the more complicated other kinds of IoT sensors to automatically retrieve measurements and even read certain measurements, perhaps even with your smart glasses if you're doing an inspection with that. But also for the worker himself, with the tools he has with him, it should also be connected with the other tools. So with the drone that you maybe want to use in a certain situation, or the most obvious one is the tablet or the other mobile device you are using as, let's say, your main device. You want those to be interconnected as well. So with everything that the worker has on its has with him, but also with the rest of the external organization factors, sensors, and other applications. So with this, of course, with due pride, I can say that Smartflow comes in. With Smartflow, our goal is basically to digitize work processes like inspections with our industry-specific focus and knowledge, and to have everything basically, as I would like to call it, under one roof for the field worker. So to basically create one front end for that field worker. With this, we will integrate all the digital tools that the field worker, or the connected worker as we like to call him, needs, and integrate this further with the back office and other, for example, external systems. However, it's not limited to that, because we believe in the power of integration. Our platform also supports communication with all kinds of sensors to retrieve and read data, but also with already created plugins like OCR to read gauge or meter values, or, for example, a more famous one, Google Vision plugin to recognize, let's say, faults or errors in pictures with the help of artificial intelligence. So with all those plugins, I want to highlight that we don't want to reinvent the wheel if that's not possible. There are certain companies or certain, let's say, experts on certain fields, like a speech to text engine. We're not going to create that ourselves. We will just use a third party for that. Same, for example, with OCR or Google Vision. Our main goal with this is to create the next generation of connected workers, a term which I also used before. In our vision, this will ensure that the connected worker is, let's say, integrated into their environment, is connected to also to his colleagues that are also working in the field, which is also, I believe, often overlooked one, but also is empowered with that real-time information and access to all of the operational data he needs for his activities and inspection he's doing on a daily basis. And this is supported, but also feels supported by all the systems that the organization has, all the systems behind him, basically, and provided with all the digital tools he needs for all the activities he does. And obviously this will come with great benefits, but most notably, of course, increased efficiency, less human errors because of the validation mechanisms we will build in, and of course, in the end, improved compliance safety. So I want to give you a little bit of an idea what a Smartflow inspection form could look like with smart glasses. I have added a screenshot. The connected worker will see this actual screen in the bottom corner of his line of sight, which what we have tested. This screenshot is an example of a daily operator round that is ran on a tank terminal. The connected worker in this scenario has to answer certain questions with given options. So, for example, the running pump condition, and insert values based on a measurement he has to do with another tool or another, or he has to actually read these values of the gauge, for example. If that is the case, for example, you can also go with the OCR plugin to simply make a picture with the smart glasses that the value is automatically inserted in, for example, the temperature field or in the suction pressure. Depends on the situation. As you can see on the screenshot, all the questions are numbered, which basically means with voice commands, you can simply say answer question 1, then you can select run, stop, or maintenance. Answer question 2, you can insert a temperature value, for example. Answer question 6 to select a pump condition, which will show a drop down with a lot of options. But also you can also say take a photo, and then on that photo field you see at the bottom, the camera automatically opens. You can make a photo and edit an inspection form, or to add general remarks, which again you can do with voice commands, speech to text.
So Aidin, you can
Yes.
and go back to the previous slide. So as a user, as I'm understanding it correctly, yeah, let's say you see those numbers, and it's quite, let's say, a tablet view that you will have. And then by giving, let's say, voice commands, you can quickly give commands to, let's say, answer the temperature, or to select the pump condition, or to take a photo. And at the same time, your hands, let's say, are free to, and you have a clear vision inside of the work you're actually executing. So it's let's say, just a small part of the screen, and using your voice, you are conducting the whole inspection, and all data is captured. And
yeah, exactly. No, you summarized very well. So you'll see on the left part of the screen also a picture of someone wearing those smart glasses. They see that screen on the right bottom of their eye, and the equivalent of that screen which they see is let's say the equivalent, I believe, of a 7 or 8 inch tablet screen. So how the screen looks in your eye is basically as if you are holding a 7 or 8 inch tablet screen. I'm not sure
in landscape, right?
how much inch it was. Yeah, in landscape, yeah. So of course, this is just a very small section, very small screenshot. But in practice, they have to do these kinds of. These are the values of one tank, and I think they have to do like sometimes like tens or hundreds of these tanks on a daily basis, and they have to do these measurements all the time. So what they did before was they had a tablet with them or with pen and paper if you want to go one step further back. But they had to, with the tablet, they had to question, for example, temperature. Then they had to put the tablet away, do the measurement with some specific tools that they had, and then take the tablet back and put in the value. Of course, with this, they can automatically just hold it, do the measurement, and put in the value. And this maybe seems like a very small step, but if you have to do it hundreds of times a day, it will, in the end, increase efficiency.
Can you also use the smart glass, let's say, to scan an object? So let's say if there's a barcode or let's say another type of scanning that you are able to get the right, let's say, the right asset. And there's a second question. Let's say what happens if there's a lot of noise around you? So we have the kind of noise, let's say the industrial noise, let's say the assets that are running, the generators, etc., or people that are around you that are talking, communicating through the walkie-talkie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with the first question, yeah, it has a built. Most of the smart glasses, let's say the total package smart glasses, have a built-in camera. With that, if you have let's say the right software attached to it, like business solution attached to it, you can of course take pictures, make videos, which are the obvious ones, but also scan barcodes or QR codes. If you add an OCR plugin to it, which I also pointed out before, you can also read off values of a gauge or a meter or a piece of paper. But that's of course an external plugin, but yeah, you can definitely make that work with smart glasses. So that's the first question. The second question, if you can remind me, yeah, that was
talking to the walkie-talkie, let's say, quite dynamic.
Yeah, the voice. No, indeed. Yeah, I remember. So yeah, the voice question is so luckily because all of these smart glasses are the target audience are enterprises. So also the inspector workers that work on oil platforms, on tank terminals, or let's say overall in very noisy elements. The microphones are most often tested and developed for such purposes. So I personally had a lot of talks with RealWear, as you also can see on in your left, in the photo in the left. And they had some demonstrations on how they developed this system. It was also in an environment where the decibel level was very high, and still the voice commands would catch the voice of the speaker because of the microphone placement. And of course, there are multiple microphones in the smart glasses, but also how it was configured. And I can proudly say that I have also tested myself, not in a very noisy environment as maybe a factory or something like that, but definitely with a lot of sound going on. In these COVID times, it was just at home, but I can confirm that it works very
They are
well.
using, let's say, the same techniques, I guess, right? Let's say the noise canceling tactics that your microphone is using, your computer is using, your smartphone is using.
Yeah, that's also what you see with that from that's also why I wanted to add that history slide at the front. So before we had, let's say, smart glasses that could do one or two things or three things maybe, but you see with the smart glasses that we have right now offered, they combine all of those things. So they also have that consumer technology that we're used to in the consumer market, like all the latest smartphones have, so some aspects of that, AR, GPS, so everything is basically in one package and works very well. Yeah.
All right, so we have 12 minutes, so let's go into, let's say, a use case again, I think, Aidin. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, so the use case is perhaps the most interesting part of a webinar. So for this first scenario, this company sells, rents, and leases out different kinds of cranes. If somebody is into cranes, mobile cranes, gantry cranes, tower cranes, all kind of cranes basically. For this, they did yearly inspections with a combination of a digital Excel sheet and the traditional methods, pen and paper. They filled in the inspection data on site, and later in the office, they manually copied all the values on the desktop PC in the Excel sheet. So, as you might guess, the problem with this was it took sometimes a couple of days, if there was a backlog, if the workload is very high, to send a proof of inspection, like a certificate or a note with the summary to the company that actually uses the crane. Because all the data first needs to be manually copied in this digital Excel sheet, and based on the digital Excel sheet, I believe a PDF is generated, and when the PDF is generated, it was manually mailed through their mail client. A lot of manual work. The biggest problem, however, was the fact that the workers really needed their hands free in certain steps in the inspection, especially with the, I believe tower cranes is the right name, if they were working in these, let's say, great heights. To tackle this, they went one step further and ditched the Excel sheet and made use of a mobile application instead to perform the actual inspection directly on site. So instead of doing it first on paper and then going back to the office to fill it in, why not do it directly? However, as you might guess, with some specific cranes, it was necessary that the connected worker had their hands free. Because I believe they had to do some, open something up, do some maintenance activities, check something inside. And for this part, it was really necessary to have their hands free. For this, a seamless transition was developed in the inspection form to switch at a certain point to the smart glasses and to answer the questions with voice commands. Since some of the maintenance and inspection activities were also, let's say, complicated, it was very useful that a blueprint could be opened and shown on that same screen at all times, which also made it more obvious how to perform the inspection with clear instructions and what steps to take. When the inspection was completed, automatically a PDF with the most important findings were generated and sent to the owner of the crane. So when the inspector was done and, let's say, driving to his next site, next work, the PDF was already automatically generated and sent to the owner of the crane. With this, the connected worker now has the right tool at the right moment. So a combination, in this case, between the tablet, the mobile tablet, and actually the smart glasses. With this, I would like to discuss the second scenario with you. The second scenario is for a company which provides a self-service training and, let's say, an self-service inspection possibility for owners of all kinds of assets and equipments, like earth-moving machines, water pump systems, equipment that supports the airplanes, forklifts, etc. They're actually already fully digital because they have a mobile application for this. And for each asset, they have a specific inspection form which the user can follow themselves. Of course, that user is trained and is actually certified to do those kind of things, but the focus here is on, let's say, self-service. The company that provides, let's say, this platform wants to ensure that the quality of inspections and examinations is maintained to a certain level. At the same time, they also have to do, let's say, random checkups that everything is still going according how they're supposed to go. To achieve this, what they did was they always made an appointment with their users to actually go on site and follow how they were doing the examinations. However, because of the amount of inspections and users kept growing in their platform, and last year, of course, due to COVID-19, this was becoming increasingly difficult. On top of this, there was no actual data collected with this evaluation, since they simply went on site, followed the user, asked some questions that were relevant, of course, but nothing was collected actually. So the solution for this was actually twofold. First, using smart glasses, the inspection could be evaluated by a live stream from somewhere in another office. And, or maybe I should say the most important one, the inspector could actually record his activities during an inspection. So when he was doing the inspection with the smart glasses, he could record it and link it to the inspection form and send it over to the company. The company that needs to evaluate these, so let's say the owner here, then gets a notification, can open the inspection form, open the linked video, and immediately answer an X amount of questions for the evaluation and save it. With this, which is a lot of improvement was made, an actual database is actually created for these evaluations, which can help, of course, for a lot of future decision making. A whole new range of data is collected with this. On top of that, finally, the actual videos can be anonymized and perhaps used for training purposes or knowledge transfers that they also do when they are training these new certified users. So a whole new dimension was not necessarily accidentally, but was created with the use of the smart glasses in this scenario. Because they could actually do the inspection, but also record the inspections and send it over to the platform owners.
This use case basically describes, let's say, a person that had to go on site to review, let's say, the inspection person, certified inspector doing the certified inspection, and now the inspection is being conducted, but at the same time video recorded and with all the benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also an interesting question, Aidin, from the audience, and it's about wind turbine inspections. And I think this one is particularly interesting because we know a wind turbine is quite high and it's quite a big with the blades and everything. How would you take that? Because I can imagine that, let's say, there are different, let's say, inspection tooling or means to make that inspection smarter. Let's say partly maybe the smart glass, partly also maybe a drone to gather, let's say, all the data necessary and integrate it.
Yeah, of course, I'm going to say Smartflow as a business solution. For this, you actually want a solution, I think, that collects the data and let's say stores it in one central place. So instead of having separate data streams from the drone, from the smart glasses, or even maybe from the tablet that you're holding, you want that everything comes together, maybe even in one form, but most importantly, comes together back in one, let's say, database. So for that, with Smartflow, for example, you could, depends on the flow, of course, to do the whole inspection with the smart glasses, and at a certain point where it's very difficult to reach for the connected worker, you could simply grab his drone, fly by, make a video, make pictures whenever necessary. And that file will automatically be merged with the already inspection form you already have opened on your smart glass on your tablet and be merged together or linked together on a later stage. Of course, you can go one step further with that and have all kinds of AI tooling with those videos or pictures you have made with your drone, that the AI tool will automatically recognize certain defects or other issues based on the video or the photo that you have made with your drone. Most importantly, that data capture, that smart data capture, is done should be done by the right business solution.
So just in time, as I can see, we have, let's say, 1 minute left, and then it's already 13:45 CAT. It will be the end time of this webinar. We have sent many interesting questions, not only, let's say, about the use of smart glasses. So is the business case there, right? That's an important question that was asked. Do I have the right business case to even use this in my frontline operations? Are they not too expensive for my business process? Secondly, how is the data and connectivity working? Are they protected against asset environments, AX? So many interesting questions. I think that what we will do is that we answer one more question that came from Jan Brakel.
Yep.
And one from Leslie. So first start with Leslie. Leslie, yes, it can be integrated with iOS, but not for every vendor, but there are vendors that also make the smart glass applicable for iOS devices. And then it's, I think, attached. So then you attach the smart glass itself to an iOS device.
Yeah. In that situation, you will always need an iOS.
In iOS, you need an extra device, right? So for Android, it's a device itself, and for iOS, you need to connect it
on its own.
And then Jan is asking, are there any specific database requirements? Let's say if you want to send information to a smart glass for the inspection. So I think he's talking more about the SQLite, the database on the device itself.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you know that better than me, Jan, actually.
Yeah, also challenging you, of course. Yeah, so of course at Smartflow we try to be agnostic in terms of devices. So we know that different devices use different database systems. Let's say iOS, Android, but also Windows, and there are different versions running. So we really try to support, let's say, the newest Android versions, but also older versions. And based, let's say, on the requirements of the device, let's say the internal processor, we of course the app will run faster or slower based on what you will do with it. So it's always good to think about, okay, what kind of device do I have? In basic, let's say most of the use cases will work, but sometimes you have quite challenging use cases where you really need to think good about the hardware to make it work perfectly. Thank you all for today. Thank you also, Aidin, for your interesting webinar.
Yeah.
What we will do, we will send you the full recording, and we're always happy that if you want to reach out to us to get in contact, to tell you more about smart glasses and the use in inspections, but also more about Smartflow in general, of course. We wish you a very nice day. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon in one of our future webinars or at our website if you want to reach out to us. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm happy to. Yes, thank you all.
And you can end the session.